Boa tarde a todos. Salam aleikum.
Good afternoon, everyone.
É prazer enorme.
It's a huge pleasure to be here. I'm Marcello Chilov. I'm the representative of the Wealth Management UBS in Latin America. And to be here today is an immense pleasure. It's unimaginable. This partnership with Saudi Arabia started through some conversations a few years ago. And I think the seed that's flourishing now has been planted in Davos this year in an event we had jointly. And the purpose of this partnership is a single one: bring investment opportunities in Brazil to our customers, to global customers in the bank, to Saudi Arabia, and to explore the various alternatives we have in our country, especially in the energy sector. I would like to thank the Ministry of Investment in Saudi Arabia, Khalid Al Halif. He's not here today with us, but he's one of the idealizers of these partnerships represented by Abdul. And I'm very happy to be with people, this leading major people, to explore these opportunities. I have some leading speakers. Mr. Carlos Favros, Minister of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Supply in Brazil. Mr. Pietro Mendes, the President of the Board of Petrobras and National Secretary for Oil, Natural Gas and Biofuels at the Ministry of Mines and Energy in Brazil. Mr. Tulio Abi-Saber is the CFO at BA Energy, and Mr. Gilberto Peralta, the head of country at Airbus Brazil. And this panel today, I think as an introduction, we should say that it's not enough for the private initiative to identify investment opportunities, but the regulatory landscape and the harmonization brought by the public power, it's extremely important for these investments to be right and present a positive outcome. So, Minister, the first question is to you. We've been talking for some time. You're an enthusiast of this thesis I'm going to present now. But my question regards the national program of degraded pastures for sustainable forests. And I was created by the Ministry of the Environment. I know the Ministry of Agriculture, sorry, and I know you defend this thesis for the development of Brazil with kind of capillarity and the impact of environment. And I would like to know from you how this program is going to work with further detail and what are the long and medium term goals. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Congratulations for the event. I'd like to greet my colleagues, all the attendees. Let me just contextualize very quickly how it came up. When President Lula invited me to coordinate the government plan to agriculture and farming in Brazil in this campaign, his campaign period, 2022, what we're going to propose to agribusiness in Brazil was contemporary, something modern, efficient, give a path where our agriculture and farming was going. Because it would be very simplistic putting the software plan that we're going to support with investment that happens all the time. We did it in the first year, the biggest software plan in history. This is a daily thing in our ministry. And what would be contemporary? Where would our growth go to? This growth with a more demanded biases nowadays, that's sustainability. So where should this sector grow? Respecting environment. So this study that happened with the support of Embrapa and in Brazil, which has about 160 million factors in areas with livestock raising. And these areas are very well preserved. They have good agronomic practices. And another 30 or 40 million factors are sensitive areas. They have these farming areas, but they're sensitive, for example, the Pantanal, the Pampa. Anyway, in a universe of 100 million or 90 million hectares, they are degraded, but there should be a growth of Brazilian farm cattle raising. So The Brazilian bank, the Bank of Brazil's capillarity in the agribusiness with its customers, technically, crossing of information not only propitious lands or clay lands or the favorable climate or in which there is a network of reselling viability to produce commodities, we identify 40 million hectares. So 40 million hectares that can be incorporated in the productive system without any deforestation, without putting any trees down. So what does that mean? If we produce nowadays grains and fibers in about 78 million hectares, and a lot of that in two harvestings in the same year, the power is to double the productive area of Brazil without putting one single tree down. This is the challenge that becomes a reality. And after deployed by the government, the president has instituted the National Program of Conversion of Degraded Farming Areas, and we're instituting it and attracting investment to that. We have some protocols, understanding protocols formalized. The World Bank invested. JICA, Japanese, has also formalized a few days ago, said that they're going to put some funding. And the government inside the SAFRA plan, and I'm sure this is the aim of our farm and agriculture area, to be able to double the harvested area without having to put any trees down, using capillarity and ensuring the pillars. Food safety for us in the world, environmental safety, nothing that should be done over the forest. And also, this connected to that we're going to mention here, the potential in producing renewables, which is not conflictive, producing food and renewables.
From mobility, urban mobility to reduce offers of energy generation. Thank you, Marcello. I want to thank everyone for the invitation. I want to congratulate the ABS for making this event. We had the event, the program to move, Mover, on analysis of the sustainability, taking into consideration all kinds of energies, being it electrification or biofossil, and we are in voting in the Congress right now, and the expectation to talk about the future of oil for the future with the concepts of life cycles. And we have to take into consideration the stage of energy generation, the intensity of carbon, and we are not making a choice of a certain route or a certain energy. We are looking at vehicular electrification, and we have to understand that in different ways. We have synthetic fuels. On Monday, I was in an event on green refinery in Bahia. You can generate hydrogen through electrolyte via in a process with ethanol combined, that you can build fuels that are sustainable for aviation, green diesel. And with this route, with this hydrogen of low carb, you can produce ammonia that is important for maritime transportation. You have electrification route, traditional ones, the electrical vehicles, and we believe that they will have a great space, great room to explore in Brazil, especially in the capitals, which makes sense when you have great distances and we talk about the autonomy of the vehicles. You have another route of electrification, the hydrogen used especially for heavy vehicles, and one of the sources of this hydrogen can be the sector of energetic field, increasing the route of the energy using the hydrogen to fuel the vehicles. All of that to talk about the potential of Brazil. We have an infinity of routes, and this excess of energy, even though we are way better than some countries, and the minister always defends an equalized kind of use of energy. We did recently a study of energetic research. We have a consumption of 2.33 trillions of barrels of oil. And if we didn't have this alternative of biofossils and renewable energy, we would be with 2.63. So We save 400,000 barrels of oil per day with all these alternatives, but with all these programs of future fuel, we don't see up until 250 the peak of demand of oil derivatives. We still see a consumption very close to what we have today, even though we're talking about all these policies working. So it's important to stimulate electrification and these routes, technological routes with synthetic fuels, so that we can, in our models, see this future and understand this peak for the demand of oil. The next question is for Tulio. Tulio, the ministers talked about the competition between production for feeding and for energy. Pedro also commented on that. How do you see that this competition exists? This discussion is valid. This is an important factor. We cannot hear the speaker. The sound is not working. Good afternoon to everyone. As the minister said, in Brazil, fuel is just like food. They are essentially complementary. One goes with the other. Fomenting those two chains will drive to the whole productive cycle. The more the agriculture stimulation of production, more vegetal. This vegetal protein has improved the human alimentation and also animal. And we've seen the growth of animal protein in the last years. So fuel with food generates more food, more energy, and it allows Brazil to be the powerful player that it is now. And now we have the opportunity of double this size only with this job done by Embrapa and the government of Brazil and the Bank of Brazil. We have the opportunity of doubling our capacity and of generation of animal protein. And so we generate a positive cycle of more food, more animals having food that generates more protein with better human nutrition. Thank you, Tulio. Minister, do you want to add to that? No, I think that's it. That's the synthesis, that's the summary. There's no conflict in production of energy and food. They're complementary. One makes the other one possible. The price format of it makes it feasible. Maybe I didn't mention how important it is, and we're talking to investors here, how we're talking about commodities, the need of investment for infrastructure. Look, if we talk about doubling the area, the size, we're doubling the capacity of demands of machines, tractors, agriculture engineers. The Brazilian economy is agriculture, but you will double the demand of harbors, railroads. We have to think on a way of producing with a more competitive way to reach the world. Another question, Gilberto, you're the country head of Airbus, so I cannot leave this place without asking the question about fuel for aviation. Pedro talked about SAFI. I want you to share how Airbus sees this and how you see the future of this with the aviation fuel. Thank you, Marcello. Thank you, Minister Pedro. I think it's reversible. The fuel for aviation, it was a decision made way back, and world aviation is responsible for 3% of carbon emission, but it has a lot of visibility. So the companies that fabricate motors, engines, and airplanes, they've embraced this, and it's irreversible. There's no way back. As a Brazilian, I see this as an important tool, and it was good to be the last person to answer the question because I can go along with what was said here. Brazil first has the experience of energy transition. We did that with alcohol. So this program can be an example of how we do right things, and Brazil has the capacity to do so. The second thing is that Brazil has the productive capacity. We're talking about food, but people forget that, like Minister said, Brazil can have 3, 4 harvests if it has the proper irrigation. So it's not substituting one thing. You're not gonna take food out of the picture to work with energy. This is complementary. So in 2021 there was a research with all that was leftovers of many generations of energy construction, and we could produce 12 billions of liters of fuel per year. Our consumption was of 6.9 billion liters of energy. So Brazil, without talking about recovering degraded area, Brazil can produce around 5% of the world consumption. The consumption today for fuel aviation is increasing more and more, and Brazil can be the country that can produce 20% of this if we recover the degraded areas. Brazil is from Latin America, is the only country that is totally self-sustainable, and the aviation's companies will have to put 1% of SAF in the tanks. Brazil is avant-garde in this situation, and Tulio is going to create a usine of SAF in Paraguay. Bernardo is going to create one in the United States, but they are Brazilians. Let's not export this. Let's bring this to Brazil. Let's not export in the industry of cellulose or animal sebo. Let's work here, export from here. That's aggregated value, quality jobs, and the industry is going to turn this around. You have to produce these usines here. We're talking about logistics, we're talking about transportation. This is a very important program. We believe that, we understand that you need to be created, power plants need to be constructed here. Some countries are operating with SAF. We in Airbus consume 3 to 4% of the world consumption worldwide in our airplanes. The last airplane that Latam had received, it had 20% of SAF in the tank. So we deliver airplanes with 20%. Our airplanes operating in Europe and France, they are tested with SAF with 30, 40, even 50% of SAF. So it's irreversible. And Brazil is the country that can make it possible economically, make it feasible economically. We're talking about many opportunities, a huge potential of investment. How government, especially your ministry, look at investors such as Saudi Arabia and the IBS clients to get into the segments that we talked about here? Oh, that's key. It's elemental. And Lula said that about the recovering good relationships in terms of diplomatic relationships. That's why we see the marketing opening and amplifying this year because of that. You see the result in the commercial balance that we see in Brazil with a superávit of almost $100 billion in terms of trade balance. So that's how you see how, for example, Saudi Arabia is a preferential partner. Myself, I went 3 times there in the last 500 days. I was there with the Ministry of Investment, together with Vice President Geraldo Alckmin, signing deals for infrastructure, compositions of funds, and it's good. And we see that in the result of our annual surplus. So we can offer food safety, sustainable production, economic opportunities, and receive these investments and generate reciprocity with investments. They are taking advantage of our protein animal. So we see that both countries are gaining with this deal. With all these opportunities that we have now, we already see the cost of energy being very high. How government is looking at it, and what are the alternatives to modernize the existing parks and fight against this high cost of energy? Well, that's an excellent question. First of all, because when we see hydrogen, we see the lowest cost of hydrogen production in the world, but our energy fare is high, and it's high because of an amount of subsidized that we see in the energy bill. The Ministry, Alessandro Silveira, sees that as a priority issue, reducing energy and reducing fuel. Price of energy, price of the cost of food, energy and food safety are guidelines that are very clear for President Lula as priorities. And we've done many studies with intention to reduce the CDE, understand what kind of subsidies could be taken out of this account. We need to modernize the sector. We need to discuss this with National Congress. And talking a little bit about this link, I think it's important that Saudi Arabia and these funds can help us, even though we have a lower cost of production with raw material. We are competing with United States that have the safe reduction net, with Europe that has a Green Deal, China that has many subsidies, and one of the bottlenecks that we have is to reduce the cost of capital investment with our better use of the feedstock and better use of rates in financing, so that we improve our bilateral relationship like we have, for example, with Saudi Arabia, as mentioned. I am sad because I looked at the clock here and our time is up. We could talk about this for a long time still, but I wanted to thank the Minister, Tulio, Gilberto, Pedro, and Minister, I just want to open the mic for your final considerations. Well, first of all, I just want to congratulate you for the event. The participation of the Investment Ministry of Saudi Arabia is a clear demonstration of the good relationships and the good opportunities that are becoming concrete. I want to thank for the collaboration. You see that a panel shows that there are complementary possibilities of using and generating energy with a contemporary, modern look at it. And Brazil is a reality, and the great opportunity and the great avant-garde of the sustainable production of renewable energy. So congratulations for bringing this subject to the panel.